Japan Station is made possible in part by Patreon support, and I'd like to say thank you to our two new patrons, Kiara and Kuro. Thank you so much. Every little bit is a huge help, and you guys are just amazing. This is especially helpful because we just launched the new YouTube channel, JapanKyo Docs, and we're super committed to that. So every little bit really does help immensely. And also thank you so much to Robbie, who upped his pledge to an immensely generous amount. Thank you, Robbie. You've been here since the beginning. I can't thank you enough. Also, I wanted to throw in just a quick thank you to Zach from the Tokyo Splosion podcast, who helped us out a lot with the JapanKyo Docs project. You can go find him on Twitter over at Gaijin Wota, GAIJINWOTA, or of course over on the Tokyo Splosion podcast. So once again, thank you to the patrons. If you would like to become a patron and help us fund these things that we're working on, then head on over to japankyo.com/Patreon. Welcome to Japan Station, a production of JapanKyo.com. I'm your host, Tony Vega. Today we're doing things a little bit differently. Today I'm not going to do the whole intro music and the train noises and the choo-choo and all that because, well, one, we're going to be doing a slightly different kind of episode, but also because my guest is already here. So today I'm joined by Kyle from the Tokyo Splosion podcast. Welcome, Kyle.
Heyo.
Hey,
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Well, I mean, what we're going to talk about is something that we've been working on for several months now. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, like I think the Ichimon Japan listeners already know Kyle, but this is first time on Japan Station. So Kyle, like I said, I came to learn of Kyle through the Tokyo Splosion podcast. I love that podcast, and I always say it and I always mean it, but I love that podcast. And so just through me finding out about that podcast, and then I reached out, and then we started kind of working together, and then we were getting along, and things were going wonderfully, and we were prancing around the fields, and everything was going wonderfully, and then Kyle approached me with an idea.
Yep, on one knee, as you do.
Yes.
Arm extended.
So what was the idea?
I said, Tony, things are getting more serious now, and I think it's time for us to take it to the next step.
Yeah.
Let's make documentaries about Japan for YouTube.
And then I had to, first of all, kind of grab onto something because I thought I was going to, faint. But no, I YouTube is obviously, that channel is out. It's called JapanKyo Docs. I should get that out of the way first. But,
yes. You have to say it 3 times so people remember it.
Exactly, yeah, and we'll keep saying it. This whole episode is basically about this, but we're going to learn a little bit about Kyle too. So also not just shilling, also a little bit about this interesting person that is Kyle. But JapanKyo Docs, JapanKyo Docs, JapanKyo Docs.
There we go.
It's a new YouTube channel that we have created, and you can. The easiest way to get there might be to just type in japankyo.com/YT. But of course, there will be a link in the show notes, or you can go to YouTube, put in JapanKyo Docs. By the time you're listening to this, so the channel trailer will be up, and at least episode 1 or the first video will be up. Because this one's going up on November 1st. So, and we do have several other videos planned. But anyway, so YouTube was something that I wanted to do, but for various reasons. I'm not good with editing video because of, one, I'm legally blind, so that's one factor.
Yes.
But also, I'm already doing so many other things that I just can't keep expanding and expanding. So, and I'm in Hawaii, I'm not in Japan, and right now it's very difficult to travel to Japan, so that's another couple of factors. But and then Kyle came up with this idea. Let's try working together, and then I can do the things that I can do, and then Kyle can do the things that he's good at, and together we can come up with something even better than only one of us could. So
Yep, it's really a perfect combination because your language ability is better than mine in Japanese, and you've run the blog for a while and the podcast. You've met a lot of people, so I've been wanting to do a project like this for a while, but for me to both find the people and contact them and arrange the time and do the interview, with the language barrier and whatnot, it just wasn't happening
Mm-hmm.
for me. So you doing that and then me showing up with the camera and doing the thing, it's perfect.
Yeah. And, I mean, this is perhaps a slightly pandemic-y kind of thing, but I never would have thought that like I would be able to do remote interviews with somebody filming in person in Japan, and then that would be like something feasible that would turn into, I think these videos are very, very high quality, and you would never imagine that this is how most of them are being done. But
yeah,
it's such a weird thing, but it works. It's been working. I mean, I don't know, but
I mean, they're usually basically just Discord or line calls, right? And sometimes the person will just have you in their ear, looking at the camera.
Yep.
But you would never guess.
So, yeah, I mean,
Hollywood magic.
Exactly, technology, wonderful, wonderful technology. But like, it's the typical sort of shot, right, where you have a person kind of looking to the camera and they're talking, and you don't see the person on the other side of the camera. The thing is that the interviewer is not on the other side of the camera. Usually they're in Hawaii, and the person being interviewed is in Japan.
And there's all kinds of snazzy B-roll to keep it snappy, keep it interesting.
Exactly. Kyle is a master at just filming and editing and doing it. It's just come out beautifully. I am so proud to be part of this project. So I am very happy with what we've produced so far, and we're still hard at work at trying to set up some other interviews and keep this thing going. Before we'll talk a little bit more about the project, but first I wanted to ask you a couple things that actually I don't think I've ever asked you, Kyle, despite the fact that we've been talking like almost daily for like months and months now. But how did you get into Japan? Like what sparked your interest in Japan? What's your kind of Japan origin story?
Oh, if only I had a good answer to that. I think it's different every time somebody asks me. I recently was thinking about it. I think when I was in elementary school, my bus driver gave a presentation about his trip to Japan for some reason.
That is okay. I've never heard that.
And he gave a little slideshow, and we all sat on the floor with our legs crossed, and listened to my bus driver, who was a really great guy, an amazing bus driver. But he gave his talk on Japan, and I'm from a small town in Indiana, and I remember just kind of it opened my mind to, oh wow, everywhere isn't like where I live. And it looked just so exotic and cool and strange to my eyes as a kid. And then, of course, a lot of people go the anime route. I was a little resistant to that, like when Dragon Ball Z was on and Pokemon was on. And it wasn't until I was probably like mid to late teens when I watched FLCL, if you know that anime, and Cowboy Bebop.
I do. Yep.
And those kind of like unlocked my ability to get into that kind of stuff. And then from there, I kind of dove deeper into that stuff. But I think I just the interest in Japan was, seeing a place where the lifestyle was so different from mine. I always thought it was cool when I saw portrayals of Tokyo. People didn't drive, they walked around, and they had like convenience stores across the corner from them and rode trains, where in Indiana, where I'm from, in the rural Indiana, Inaka, if you will, we had to drive anywhere we wanted to go.
Right.
I don't know, little things like that.
I remember one time with a friend, we drove from Bloomington to Chicago, and I remember seeing a lot of just like fields and corn or something. So
you were in the one cool place in Indiana. What were you doing there?
Well, because my friend was going to college there, so that's why I went to visit him at law school. So
yeah. Sorry to my fellow Hoosiers. There are other cool places, like especially living in Tokyo. I appreciate different things, like being able to go into the middle of a cornfield at night and like look at the stars. It has a certain charm and romance to it that now living in the Tokyo life, where there are no stars because of all the light pollution.
Right.
It's different trade-offs.
Yeah. Like your story about the bus driver reminded me of something that, I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but it caught my attention in regards to Japan in a similar sort of way, in that when I was about 10 years old, I moved to Peru for about a year and a half. And I have a cousin that was, I think he continues to live in Japan. I don't keep in touch with him, but he would send stuff like to his family in that was still in Peru, and I was there, I was living with them. So one time I remember he sent us a package, and he sent us this book of like one of those, it's kind of like one of those old CD booklets, I remember it being, but instead of CDs inside, there were phone cards, Japanese phone cards, like used phone cards. And I mean, for people that, the younger people don't know what those are, but you used to have to buy a card, like a plastic, it looked kind of like a credit card, and that would have a certain amount of time, registered to it, I guess you would say. And then you would use that to make like calls from public phones. Or maybe from your house as well. I'm not don't totally remember, but the thing that was interesting about that is that there were a lot of them, and they all had really interesting pictures on them, like stuff from Japan, and I didn't know Japanese at the time, so all I could do was just like look at the pictures, and it was this kind of thing that, like, it's such an insignificant thing, but it still sticks with me, like, I don't know, many, 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 many years later. So despite the fact that, like, I don't know, I don't think that made me want to go to Japan. There were a bunch of other things, but it's this one of those things that just sticks with you, right?
Yeah. What a curious thing to send your friend in Peru.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of spent phone cards for another country. Sorry, money's tight this year. Merry Christmas.
He did. I think he sent me like a pair of sneakers as well, and like he sent a bunch of other stuff. But like, I think that's how interesting, I guess. I don't remember specifically what the artwork was, or what the photos on the cards were, but he must have thought that they were interesting enough to send them to us, despite the fact that that was extra weight in the package, because we would find them interesting enough to look at them, right?
Japan does have a history of creating a striking image, from, you can look at the ukiyo-e days or whatever, just the image of Mount Fuji itself. There's all these strong kind of iconic symbols from Japan that I think it just leaves a mark when you first see stuff, and it sticks with people. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Okay, so then what happened that made you decide to go to Japan, or did you go first time and then go back again? How did that, move happen?
Yeah, so I went to a small private Christian school, and from junior high through high school. But when I was in elementary school, I went to a public school in Bluffton, Indiana. And for whatever reason, that public school system, Japanese was one of like the 3 languages you could choose to take. You take German, Spanish, or Japanese. I think there was there were like car plants nearby. So there were Japanese families and Japanese companies. So I think they somehow worked it in that way. And I was wanting to take Japanese, and then I changed schools, and they only had Spanish because my school was so small. So I went to college thinking like, this is going to be my chance to actually take Japanese and to study abroad. I never ended up studying abroad because for whatever reason, when I went to Ball State University in Indiana, for whatever reason, the time that I was a student, it was like the year before, I knew the guy who was like the exchange student to Tokyo, and he said nobody else applied. So he basically got like a free ride because they have a system where like one student gets a scholarship. And he was the only one who applied. So he basically got paid to study in Tokyo.
Wow.
And then when I applied, there were like dozens of applicants.
Aww.
And I wasn't a Japanese major. So it's like the majors got the preference. So I ended up not being able to study abroad. But when I was a graduate student, I met my wife just kind of at a friend of a friend's party. It was like, my friend was Polish, so there were a lot of international students. And she just happened to be Japanese, and we hit it off. And then so the first time I visited was with her to meet our family. And then we did that twice while we were still living in the States. And then she got a job at Rakuten in Japan. And so we moved because of that. And I didn't really have any plans of what I was going to do. I thought I'd probably end up teaching English because that's what everybody does. Didn't end up working out that way. But I managed to find a job, and it's been 5.5 years-ish now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's all right. Yeah. I mean, that's a refreshing story simply from the perspective that, like, it wasn't like I went on jet like me.
Yeah. Well, jet, that's a cushy position. That's a good,
it is.
It's a good hookup if you can get that one. That's like the cream of the crop of the teaching jobs.
And it was even more when I was a jet, because it used to be that, it was like your salary starts at sanma, was it sanjuma, right? I think three like basically around $3,000, and it was just stable. But now they lowered, like first year it's a little bit lower, second year it increases, and then by the third year I think you make the roughly $3,000. So yeah, I got in before that change, so lucky for me.
And that's really good. Like for what the job
like
is,
a freshly graduated, person that, and I mean, yes, there are some awful situations, and sometimes you get stuck in horrible schools. I've had bad experiences, but generally speaking, that is a very cushy job. It doesn't require that much. You definitely don't have to work as much as the Japanese people. You get pretty long vacations for the most part. So it's and you get plenty of time to go experience Japan and all that. So, and it can be very fun to, deal with the kids and teach them. And I enjoyed that part of it too. So I'm very happy with my experiences, but that's just a generalization. I know some people don't have the most, wonderful experiences, but generally speaking,
pay wise, new grad pay in Japan is it's different than the US. I feel like no matter what industry you're in, it's few of them start much higher than that, even if you're like an engineer or a developer or something.
I mean, generally speaking, I remember my friends when they were graduating from college, it seemed to be anywhere from roughly the equivalent of like $2,000 to $2,500. Like starting salary. And I, even back then I was like, that seems rather low.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's just how it is. So
it's just the way it is.
Yeah, when you're in jet, like I know I felt kind of guilty sometimes. Like, these people are working like more than me, so much more than me, so much harder than me. I get to go home at 4:15 or whatever, and I'm making more money than probably some of them.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah. Okay, so had you been making videos and that kind of thing for I don't know, since college, or like when did you start doing that?
Yeah, I studied media production in college for my undergrad. And for my day job now, I think I've said it in the past, I work for the company that runs Japanese Pod 101 and English Class 101. It's called Innovative Language. And I lead the video team there. So my day job is video related. And this project was just a nice reason for me to kind of stretch my creative legs a little bit in a different way than I usually do, and kind of return to my sort of trade, I guess, that I learned in school. Yeah. I mean, whether it when I was doing stuff for the magazine, or I still do transmissions from Hawaii, a podcast for the magazine that I work for, or this podcast, or I one of the favorite things that I have is getting to meet people and talk to people and going somewhere and, learning about them and seeing what they do. And I'm jealous that you get to go do that in person. So. One of these days you'll come be here in person. Yeah.
When I can, I definitely, I've had to delay trips to Japan for obvious reasons, but when I can. So, okay. So we've basically shot 5 so far. We've got another couple in the works. But we've gotten to talk to several really, well, I think everybody's been really interesting in their own way, but have you had any interesting experiences like going to shoot one of these or interacting with any of these individuals?
Yeah, I think so. There's one, we do a video about a guy who lives out in Okutama, which is, if you're not familiar, it's kind of the northwestern edge, very edge of Tokyo. It's very rural. It might not be what you picture when you think of Tokyo. It feels more like a countryside village, but this guy moved there from Nagoya in pursuit of a different lifestyle. He is a hunter, so he takes care of animal control, basically wildlife control. And I think he's compensated by the government or something to help keep deer populations under control or something.
Yeah.
And he also raises emus, the big birds. So, Tony and I, we learned about this guy and we had to go out there and see what his deal was. So I have been to Okutama before, but it had been a while, and I think I went with a group. So this was my first time on my own. It's a bit of a trek from where I am, like an hour and a half, I think, if you do it correctly. But leaving Shinjuku, you get on the train line, and I knew this, like I've done this before on other train lines actually, and ended up where I didn't intend to go. But I got on the, I was using Google Maps or whatever, and I said, okay, the train leaves at this time. That's about what time it is now. I need to take this train. So I took it. But trains, sometimes they'll split in half. So you need to be in the right car. And eventually...
Like right side and left side, they just split in half?
Right, yeah. Right down the middle.
Yeah.
And if you're standing there, you're just
You can't be in the middle because you drop down to the tracks.
Yes. No, sometimes
I know.
one side will stay at a station apart, right? And one will go ahead off somewhere. Right. And if you're not in the correct car, you might end up going in a direction you didn't want to go in.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me. I got on the wrong car, and I went to, I think I ended up getting off somewhere near like Ome or something, which isn't that far if you have a car, but by train, it's like an additional hour because the trains only come by maybe every 30 minutes where you are.
Right.
So, and I think I was a smaller station than Ome. So I told the Emu guy I was going to meet him at like 10:30 a.m. or something, and it was already then getting close to 10 because I had overshot where I was going to go and I was in the wrong direction. So I would have gotten there at like close to noon at that point if I took the trains. And on top of that, I probably had like a bathroom emergency. So it was like, when I got all that sorted out, I decided to just take a cab, which is pricey, but I mean, hey, it could have been worse. I ended up making it to him. I only made him wait an extra like 30 minutes or so, and he was a nice guy and he understood. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. Be aware of that if you are visiting and going somewhere new. Pay attention to what car you're in. Make sure it's going where you want to go.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I mean, depending on how big the train line is, like they do announce it on the platform, but I'm not sure that every single train line or platform would announce it both in Japanese and English.
Yeah, and I was probably listening to something and not paying attention. Yeah.
So you
don't make excuses for me.
But hey, it happens. All right. So how was it with what? So you get there to okay. So something that I want to just mention just to further illustrate the kind of place that Okutama is. So I've never been there, and but when I told somebody about Okutama, they told me like, oh yeah, Okutama is the place that when you are watching a Japanese drama, like a lot of times you hear like the police found a corpse in Okutama. So
yeah, it would have been good to mention that before you sent me out there, Tony. You just told me that today after everything's captured and edited and you were mostly safe.
Yeah. It's like, this guy, he actually, this guy does have guns as far as I understand.
He's a hunter.
Yeah, he's a hunter. Yeah. So he's one of the
he's got it in his blood.
People. Yeah.
He's killed before, Tony.
He has killed before. He's got a taste for it. Yeah.
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 So that did cross my mind a couple times. I'm glad I didn't know that, but he took me up into on this mountain where he was like, okay, only the locals can go here. And he got out of his car and he had to like open a chain. And we go through the chain and then he gets out and closes the chain behind him. And I just started to think like, I'm in the mountains, in the forest, surrounded by trees. There's nobody around.
By this guy I just literally met like, I don't know, 30 minutes ago.
Literally just met, and I was late, by the way. Like, who knows what's going to set him off?
Yeah.
Already not starting off on a good foot. And he's a hunter. He has weapons.
Yep.
And we're driving up into the mountains behind a closed off gated road.
Yeah.
So hopefully things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was totally cool and nice. And the place he took me was really cool. You can see it in the video. There's a shot of a bridge from above. That's the secret murder forest that he took me to, but everything was great.
So one thing, I think the reason why, you hear that in dramas is because that's one of the closest rural areas to central Tokyo. So, let's just say hypothetically somebody wants to hide a body. I guess that's one of the most convenient areas because it's so rural and so close.
Yeah.
I don't know how often that actually happens in the news. That's just one of those, I guess, kind of drama tropes that may be inspired by real life. I don't know. But another thing, like you said, Hiroshi, he was a super nice guy. I think that's going to be the third video that comes out, right?
Yes.
Is it? Yes. Okay. So that won't be out now when you hear this, if you're listening to this as soon as it comes out, but it will be out soon after.
On its way.
So go subscribe, go do that. So
hold on to your pants, everybody. They're coming. It's going to be there.
Notification bell. We are working very, very hard. We're tracking down more people. And so it's like sometimes some of these people that I find are people that I've had in mind for months or sometimes longer. Like sometimes it's because of Ichimon Japan, because I do a lot of research into obscure topics, such as pompadours in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing the research for that episode, which what was the episode? That was like, what is Furio? I think was the name of the title of the episode, because Furio are like these delinquents, and one of the things that a certain type of delinquent in Japan is known for are like these big pompadours. And so when I was doing the research for pompadours in Japan, I happened to come across a guy that had a YouTube channel that was entirely about him and his pompadour and his fashion and his life as a guy with a pompadour.
Yeah.
And I was utterly fascinated by this when I did the research for this. I did mention it in the episode. And I think I discovered this before Kyle approached me with the idea of doing this project. And so when he told me this was one of the first people that I thought of. And this was the very first guy that we contacted.
Yeah. And side note there, if you're a delinquent, it's funny that the pompadour is the thing that you choose, because it takes so much commitment and dedication and kind of a will to present yourself well or a certain way. Because we learned how, his name's Yuki-san, we learned how he makes his pompadour, and it's like a 90-minute ordeal. So if you're out there, a rabble rouser looking for trouble, it's like, I gotta go hit up this kombini and like tag a dumpster, but first I need 90 minutes to get my look right.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting.
Like, look, what time's the rumble at? All right, 9 a.m. All right, okay. Gotta wake up at 6. All right, have a good breakfast.
Yeah.
Get the hair sorted out, and then take the train. That's going to be another 40 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, should be able to make it by 9. Yeah.
And hopefully you have the hairspray budget. Well, that's why they had to turn to crime, is to buy all that hairspray. There's a shot in the video where you see Yuki-san's hairspray. He has a shelf just filled with bottles of hairspray, and he probably goes through like a half a can for every pompadour. So that thing comes at a cost.
Yeah. This might not have made it into the final cut of the video, but I did ask him like how much it costs him to like keep that up. And he said something like $100 or $200 or something like that, like the equivalent
per month, probably.
Per month, I think.
Because he goes to a special hair salon too.
Yeah, he does that. And then of course he has all the hairspray and all that. And like he has these, very specific tools. Like one thing that he has is this little racket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing the subtitles for this, I wasn't sure if I should just translate it as racket or if this was some sort of special hair tool that has some special name in English. So in the subtitles, I just went with racket because he called it a raquetto, which is the katakana of racket. So I don't know. I don't know what that thing is because it's a little racket. It's not like a big tennis racket.
It's like a little toy racket for, I don't know, like the badminton of ping pong or table tennis, like something, some kind of game is played with it.
Yeah. And he kind of, I guess he uses to kind of like very lightly mold the hair as he sprays it down with the hairspray, right?
Yeah, because you think that big pompadour shape, you don't need a comb. You need some big broad surface to just kind of sculpt it. And that's what he uses it for. Yeah.
And just to be perfectly clear, Yuki was so incredibly nice.
Yes.
And
not a vagrant or a delinquent at all.
No, just such a nice guy. And like, I love his look. I love his fashion and everything that I've seen about like the kind of person that he is. Like, I think I would get along with him and I would love to hang out with him.
It was fun hanging out with him. And he's a pro. Yeah. When we were shooting like the B-roll shots of him, you can see it in the channel trailer if you want to see what he looks like. It's on YouTube.
He looks so good on camera.
But yeah, he just knows what to do. He just stands there and he's like, okay, I'm just going to make these cool poses, and he just alternates between the poses. Didn't have to like direct him at all or make him comfortable. He was just like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, he's like the channel mascot, I think.
Yeah, he is at this point. Yeah.
No, he looks so cool, and like I said, he's so nice. So, you get to see the whole process. He walks us through it, and he also tells us a bit about himself and kind of like what it kind of means to him, like what that life with like that has been for him. And I think you get a really nice peek into kind of who he is as a person and kind of the motivations that went into kind of why he does that, despite the fact that he seems to be really a rather reserved person, a rather, he even says it himself, he was very shy, but nevertheless, he has this very flashy look.
Yeah, and not only is it a commitment doing the pompadour, but in a collectivist society, standing out like that, it's not something that people just choose to do every day, right? So to that level, to really stick out. And as you said, I think he said, for him, it's kind of like the conversation starter. It's a way of pulling him out of his skin a little bit. And it was really cool. Really interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah. We've got a couple other ones that hopefully come through that I'm really, really excited about. So I won't say anything more about that, but just suffice it to say that we have, already, I think 5 shot, many more to come. We want to see how this goes, and then we'll make some decisions exactly about how to move forward. We're both very excited about this project. I don't know, maybe we go with a seasonal kind of approach. Maybe we try something else. I don't know yet, but we really, really, really appreciate, the support of all you listeners. Please go subscribe, go hit the notification bell, do all that YouTube-y stuff that people always ask you to do. But, if you enjoy, what I've been doing I started the website in 2016, but I don't think I started the podcast until 2018, I think. So it's been a few years now that I've been at this, and Kyle has been at, he's done YouTube before, Hard Officers, all about video games. If you guys like old video games, go check out Hard Officers. There's tons of content over there. And Tokyo Splosion and all that. So, we've both been at this for many years, and it's really fun to get to work on something like this with somebody that's really enthusiastic about it as well. So Kyle, that's you for me in this case.
Yeah.
And
likewise.
I really enjoy doing Japan Station. And I enjoyed writing stuff for the podcast, for the website when I was doing more of that. I don't really do that because I don't have time anymore, but those are 100% solo endeavors. Right. But when you get to kind of like throw ideas at somebody, and then, I get to see you like panicking, because you took the wrong train or whatever. And then I have to contact, he tells me to contact
Hiroshi. I see what this is all about.
Yeah. And then you tell me, like, tell Hiroshi I'm going to be late. Then I have to contact, I mean, yes, that is work, and we have to put in a lot of like effort and time into this, but it's fun. We get to look back on this, and those are our stories that we get to tell. So I love that I get to do this new thing with somebody, as fun as Kyle. So please go support us. Of course, JapanKyo.com/Patreon. If you really, really enjoy what we're doing, then please, you can send us money. The more money you send us, the more we know that you appreciate it.
Yes. And there are some options. Like if you listen to Tony's stuff and you subscribe to the channel and you like what you see, let us know. I mean, genuine, real feedback, because we have full interviews. We could release like unedited interviews either on the same channel or on Patreon, or if there's interest there, or if a different approach to the channel would appeal to you as, people who already like the stuff we do, we would definitely love to hear that.
Yeah. Just to be clear, like, I think, right now, almost all of the things that we are doing or have worked on are with Japanese people. They are interviews in Japanese. Every once in a while, we might do a Westerner. We might do an interview in English. But for the most part, we've been focusing on people in Japan. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean that we won't do English speakers. We did happen to come across somebody that we were very interested in. And so that seems to be coming along. But for the most part, something that I think both of us agree here is that because I am able to interview people in Japanese, like that's one kind of thing that makes us a little bit unique. So, it's worthwhile taking advantage of that, especially, with some of the very unique people that I've been able to find just kind of sometimes purely by accident, by looking into other things that I think other YouTube channels would never come across because they don't take the time to research like juvenile delinquents and pompadours in Japan, right? So, or like emu ranchers in Okutama, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a whole different sort of a thing when you're looking for stuff cool in Japan in English versus when you're looking for interesting things in Japan from Japanese sources, you're going to find completely different answers.
Yes.
So
yes,
this channel has a little bit more of that, kind of inspired by going down more Japanese rabbit holes. Yeah.
99% of the research when I'm looking for somebody is in Japanese. Like I've found people listening to a podcast in Japanese that they happen to mention this group of people that have very interesting hobbies and businesses. And then I went to that website and then I found one of the people that we're going to be interviewing in November. So the way that I'm finding people is, I think, generally a bit different from a lot of times what you see in other channels. So I think just for that, it's worthwhile. But as Kyle said, we have full versions of the interviews. They are, for the most part, in Japanese. Like, all of them right now are in Japanese, I think. But if you guys are interested, then you can comment in the videos. You can send me mail at japanstationpodcast.com, reach out via Twitter at JapanKyo News, whatever, just let us know. I'm always really, really happy when I hear from listeners, and thankfully every single time I've heard from somebody, it's been positive. So I have yet to get hate mail. So that's a decent record, I guess. But yeah, that channel is out now, japankyo.com/YT. JapanKyo Docs is the name of the channel. That's DOCS. Go check it out. Give it a look. Subscribe. Check back regularly. We are doing our absolute best. And I will, of course, be updating people whenever a new video comes out here on the channel, on the podcast, because, I got to remind you guys every now and then. But Kyle, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, that's the main project I'm plugging these days. So go check it out, people.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kyle. And I'm looking forward to the other stuff that the other videos that we're working on. So we'll leave it at that. Again, Facebook. Now we're on Instagram too. I've always had the Instagram account, but I never did anything with it because I'm just kind of lazy with Instagram. But
there's one post. I might be helping out with that.
Right now there's one post, but we will be posting more as videos come out. So you can also follow us on Instagram, and all three, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, are at JapanKyo News. So nice and easy to remember, at JapanKyo News. You can follow on any of those platforms. I personally, I'm most active on Twitter, but we will be posting all video announcements on all three platforms. So mail at Japan Station Podcast for the email, and I'll close out with what I always say: go find your miniature pony.
Just do it!